Good.
2, 1. All right, guys. Happy Thursday morning. Welcome to the Indie Show. I'm your host, attorney for creatives, Joey Vitale. And every week, every Thursday, we do this Indie Show to bring on a different kind of expert for creative small business owners. And this morning, we are so excited to be bringing on Bryan Kramer. And eventually his wife, Courtney Kramer Smith, is going to come on. I'm looking to see her face pop up. But you guys, this is so exciting. Bryan, when we talk, you might forget this as we talk because Bryan is just so approachable, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But he's kind of a big deal. Bryan has written, you guys might have heard B2C or B2B, different types of marketing techniques. And Bryan had this really kind of breakthrough idea called H2H, human to human. And with that simple idea, he has gotten on the TED stage. He has written a best-selling book, and we're going to get into all of that stuff. But Bryan, can you walk us through a little bit about your story, what you're up to now, and what you're excited about?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm excited about everything right now, which is kind of funny because it feels so wrong to say that you're excited about everything, but I really am. I really enjoy a lot of different things that I'm doing right now. We're consulting different companies, which is a lot of fun. We're kind of outsourced CMOs, timeshare CMO, or not timeshare, fractional CMOs, if you will. And so we help companies in that way, and we kind of plug ourselves in where there's no CMO or no head leadership, and we work with them. And then we are working with individuals with their personal brands to help build their personal brand awareness through marketing and through branding and some fun techniques there. And we do a lot of coaching, but we also do have the H2H Club, which is, as you know, because we have some fun working with you as well, and that's the H2H Club membership that we have, where individuals can come in and they get like basically an outsourced CMO for themselves through the club, and we can help them one-on-one and as a group, and we all kind of put in a lot of different efforts into different topics every month, like live video and Facebook advertising and all kinds of fun things. So that's that's how we split our time. And then when I'm not doing those things, I'm writing. I'm starting to write my next book, my third book, and then I also speak quite a bit. So that's always a lot of fun, and I love being on stage. So whenever I get a chance to speak to pretty much a wall, I'll do that. So.
Well, I'm just so happy to have you, Bryan, and you're obviously doing so much. And what I love about what you're doing is that I think when a lot of people hear it, they're like, oh, that makes sense. And they might even say like, oh, I knew that already. It's something that kind of just like hits home. But then when you actually look at the steps that you're taking and the consequences of what it means to share in that way and to be a business that's also being human, there really is some kind of like next level depth to what that does. And I mean, you and I in our relationship is really a consequence of that. I know our good buddy Mitch Jackson connected the two of us, and a lot of that happened from just the three of us, the four of us, including Courtney, all just kind of having human conversations.
Sure. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about some, because I've seen it in your TED Talks and in your book, how those little signs of humanity can really resonate with your followers, with potential customers.
Yeah. So here, think about it this way, because when you say human to human, it makes sense, and it almost makes sense to the point where you're like, yeah, of course, I've been doing that my whole life. In fact, we've been doing that since people came around and they started to share or sell us vacuums, or they were delivering milk to your door. As far back as cave paintings. I mean, the human to human really has been around forever. So this is not a new theory. This isn't a new thing. Why it matters now is because we're getting really far away from it. We're starting to automate so much that the human to human piece is starting to distract us, because we think, well, can I automate that? What can I do to get away from people so that I don't have to engage, so that I don't have to build, or how do I even engage? There's more small businesses in this country, in almost every country, than there is mid-size or enterprise companies. So the question on everyone's mind is, how do I scale my marketing and grow my business without having to make all those relationships that are out there? Because it's impossible for me, one person, to get out there and do all those different things.
Yep.
And what I'm saying here is that you can automate, but you want to insert human touch points into the right places. And in those human touch points where you actually reach out and you do something different, that's going to make a difference and put you over other people that are saying the same thing. Other businesses are saying the same thing. Great example is direct mail.
Okay.
Direct mail. Think about it. How much mail do you get in your mailbox right now?
Yeah.
Not much. Yeah, but compared to 10 years ago.
Oh, sure.
10 years ago, we used to get stacks of mail, to the point where if you got like 3 or 4 handwritten letters, it was probably a little bit more normal than it is now, right? Now, if I get a handwritten letter or a handwritten note, I'm like, oh my God, that person took so much time to do this. I feel like I need to write a thank you for their thank you.
Right.
And I'm feeling so honored, right? Why is that? Because no one sends mail anymore. Well, now moving forward, everyone's sending email. And now when one person sends a personal email versus an automated email, it really makes a difference. But, well, bell bottoms are coming back too. So maybe we should all be sending thank you notes to each other. Email. There's these cyclical things that I'm talking about that really makes a difference in how things are evolving. Automation is evolving. Different things that we're doing to scale is evolving. But how do you insert back in the direct mail, the handwritten thank you note touch points? I'm not saying that you have to do handwritten thank you notes, but just to accentuate the point, if you want to insert these little touch points, a personalized video to someone who instead of a thank you, you actually get your phone out, say something on video, and email that to them. Those kinds of things will make such a difference in somebody's day when they're receiving all of the stuff at them, and they're like, is anyone out there human?
Right.
And all of a sudden you send that one piece, that's going to make a difference.
I love that, and I think that it's it can be tempting for businesses in general, and especially for smaller businesses, to think that in order for them to be legitimate, they have to be kind of business first. But it's definitely been my experience, and I think other businesses that I work with, where when you really put yourself first, like you said, sending an email where it's a video of you talking to them directly, is a crazy touch point that most people wouldn't even think to do. And I like how you said that doesn't necessarily mean to do away with automation, because I think that it takes some work. And I know some experts. I recently connected with somebody who works with Infusionsoft, and his expertise really is figuring out how to set up in a way that doesn't look like automation. Right. And it takes a lot of work and depth and insight, but to like you're talking directly to them in that specific sense. I love that. And I think that a lot of businesses right now are scared of kind of big businesses in a lot of ways, like taking over, and there not being room for the little man. But I think a lot of consumers are really liking that experience of that one-to-one customer service.
Totally. Yeah. And, it's one-to-one, it's accessible as a one-to-one. It doesn't mean that you're reaching out to everyone one-to-one. That's the difference. So if I can, I mean, imagine a world where you can actually reach out to the same company and get the same customer service person every single time, and they start to get to know you. They know
What was
you.
that, Brian? Imagine a world where what?
You can reach out to the same customer service person every single time in a company, where you don't have to go to 10 different people and tell your story 10 different times. They get to know you over the years. Those kinds of things are possible. And guess what? I'd be willing to wait for their call back because they're on the other line than having to tell my story to a new customer service person. And these kinds of interactions, these things are the things that small businesses have a leg up over big business. We can do that, right? And so those kinds of interactions do make you more human, and people are willing to wait to talk to you.
Yep, and I think there's just so many ways to apply that. Like I work with a sales coach and mentor, and she was walking me through kind of when you're first starting and you don't have any clients. There is a way to do direct outreach that's strategic, where you're pinpointing whether they're a potential collaborator or a potential customer or client, and you want to send as many of those out as possible. And a lot of people can fall into the trap of, I'm going to send the same message to everybody. And it's like, take the time to personalize it, to look up who they are, and pointing out that distinction, making them feel special, really says a lot. And automation is starting to catch up with it in the same way that like people are starting to see that like if their first name is mentioned in email subject, that's probably something that was automated. And so it does sometimes require some thought about, okay, let's keep a pulse on what the consumer is and the customer is feeling, to make sure that our touches of what looks like humanity is actually being seen as a human touch and not as an attempt from automation.
You know, at the end of it, I'll give you another tip. At the end of every newsletter, I put here's what I want you to do today. How does this affect you? Whatever the topic of the newsletter is. So my last email was about how underdogs win over top dogs. And it was a Forbes post that I wrote, and I basically wanted everyone to tell me what their underdog story was. So I want you to hit reply right now and tell me your underdog story. And after you tell me that, I'm going to hit reply and reply back to you. And then you're going to hit reply and reply back to me. And before you know it, we're going to have a conversation as two people. And so I said, I double dog dare you to hit reply. And I have a 30,000 email list, so that can get kind of crazy sometimes. But I don't care because that's the point of the whole thing. It's not just talking one way, right? But then I take it a step further, and I really encourage everyone who's watching to do this. That you really have to work at this. So each time you send out an email, you're really getting them going. You get them to reply. You get engagement up, because then when I get those emails, actually while I'm out walking, I'll instead of replying, I actually just lift my phone and I reply with video, and I use their name in the video.
Oh, and I love that.
I answered them personally in a video, and they have more connection with me. And then they reply back and go, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I know you, you know." And now we're getting and now after like 3 or 4 different weeks, they're like, "Hey Brian," like we're on our first name. "Hey Brian, I agree with that, but you know, it's like we're building these relationships, right? That's what we want. That's the way to do it."
Yep. No, I love it. And what technology do you use to send that video email out?
There's one that I use. There's a couple of them out there, but the one that I use is called the name's interesting. It's called Bom Bom.
Yep, that's what I thought it was. Okay.
Okay, so if you go to bombom.com/H2H, I think you get a discount because they put a discount together for all my H2H friends.
/H2H. Let me put that on the screen here. bombom.com/H2H. This episode of the Indie Show brought to you by. No, just kidding. But Bom Bom is great. I use it, and yeah, you know what, Brian? I actually need to be using it more. Oh, yeah. Is our second?
She's here. She's here. She's coming in.
Hi,
So
Joey.
we've got some questions coming in, Courtney, while you get situated here. I'm going to throw them on the and it's a question from Stella. She asks, how do you communicate? Courtney, to fill you in, we've been talking about kind of communicating human to human as much as possible, one-to-one with your followers. And I'm sorry if the comments kind of hit your face here, but how do you communicate with the person-to-person service in bigger market? The price of my products drives them to the lower price, but I have to factor in personal contact. If you've got, we deal with a lot of product-based businesses, some people who are like on Etsy that have to make a lot of sales. If you're in an industry like that, what are some easy human touches that you can add? There's a lot of inquiries coming in. There's a lot of sales going out. You can do maybe you can automate it, maybe you can't, but that make that customer feel like they're special in some way.
Oh, that's a great question. I think are we talking about proactive before the sale or post sale?
I think either, and Stella can let us follow specifically but if I were in that business, I would be thinking more about probably to start.
Yeah, both. Okay, she said both.
Okay.
I mean, we all know it's super hard to scale, so automation is usually the answer to that. And in an automated sequence, I think that before the sale, of course, you're going to be wanting to make sure that you're, I think, telling your story about maybe why you're doing what you're doing and why did you develop this product and why is it so important to you, and of course under the understanding of also what's important to the customer. So, we talk a lot about we have this really cool model called the messaging ladder. And in this messaging ladder, we're able to connect the company, the positioning, the service offering or the product that they're selling, and then the audiences down to what we call our shared careabouts. And the shared careabouts are the things that we care about as a company that overlap with the things that our customers care about. And, after some research, you can distill it down to maybe 3 to 5 shared careabouts between your audience and your company. And when you can focus on these, this means that you've done some customer research or you really know your customers and what they're looking for from your products. Then you can start to craft your messages or get ahead of any objections before they happen. So, what did she say? I want to make it clear beforehand that we didn't see the rest of it. That I can handle the needs. They also want to hear our products before purchase. Oh, guitars. Then the support after may include repair and lesson guidance. Oh, I'd say video is your best bet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many opportunities for both, regular video of maybe showing people how to do the most common chords, or here's how you clean your guitar once you get it, or the first 3 things that you do when you get your guitar in the mail. When you unbox it, when you take the picks out or take the strings out, here's how you string your guitar. And then I would say also you could do some live streaming video from even your own factory. I mean, people want to know how guitars are made. If you're actually making them yourself or if you're reselling them, then maybe live video about why you care so much about guitars in the first place.
Courtney, that was incredible. I feel like I just got chills. So quick backstory, and then I'll connect it. When I was in law school, I don't remember most of my classes, but there was one day in class where one of the smartest people in my class came in obviously hungover, half hour late, half an hour late to the class, and the professor was lecturing and asked some question. And while she was walking to her seat, she rose her hand and answered while she was sitting down. And you just did the same thing, where you just came in, we just hit you real quick with, and that was the first kind of pointed question that we got to, and you were like, here's what you do, here's what you do, here's what you do. So guys, that was just awesome. And again, please like follow these two, Bryan Kramer and Courtney Smith Kramer, because they know what they're doing here. And the fact that was a completely unscripted response to that specific question was super impressive.
Let's be clear, I'm not hungover, but most days I am. No, I'm kidding.
I was asking Bryan before we started the show what he would do differently if he was starting a new business from scratch now, and he said he'd drink more wine.
Yeah, I mean, it does help. Let's be honest.
It definitely does. It definitely does. So, Courtney, since we have you, do you have a certain perspective that you want to give on this idea of what it means to be human?
Well, we talk about in our contextually for our whole human thing is about empathy, imperfection, and simplicity. And the more we are hearing about artificial intelligence and machine learning and computers that are coming in and starting to take over some of these automation tasks that typically or traditionally humans would do, it makes me think about what do we as humans possess that is truly uniquely human against machines. And I keep coming back to the empathy piece is huge, because no matter what, I don't care any kind of AI, machines are never going to be able to have emotion. And emotions are our competitive advantage as humans, I believe, and it's how we connect to each other. And Bryan gives a great example in one of his keynotes about there's a picture that we had taken. Have you ever been to Disneyland?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at the end of the Cars ride where they take the picture of each of the cars, and then you can go and you buy the picture or not.
Yeah.
Well, we were there with our family, and at the time our daughter was about 16 years old, and she had long hair. And the camera snapped the picture in the car, like right when her hair had like swooped over here and swooped under here, so it looked like a beard. And it was hysterical, and she looked just like Jesus. No joke. She looked exactly like Jesus. And so Bryan posted on Facebook, he said, wow, for that one moment when the Cars ride turns your daughter into Jesus, and then like put a picture of it. And he uses it as an example in his keynote because a computer would never know that was funny. You know what I mean? Like when you look at it, there's a lot of inputs that are going that a human being has to be processing cognitively in order to know that that's funny, right? Like you have to know that it's ironic. You have to know that it's not true. You have to know that she's a girl and Jesus was a man, and this is part of what makes it funny, right? Yeah. That you have to understand the irony of the timing of that and why that one moment, like there's a lot of inputs that are coming in that a computer, even a smart AI machine could never be learning. So I feel like, to bring this back to your point, having empathy and emotion is really truly our competitive advantage. And so being able to connect to others emotionally is the way that we're going to, I think, thrive.
I think you and I we've all talked about this before, and I absolutely love what you said, because as somebody who kind of loves technology, and in a lot of ways is afraid of what might happen when we reach that point of technology where nothing anymore. What you just said, both for myself as a person living in this world, but also as a business owner, and it's interesting because about a month ago, somebody was talking to me, and it was a pretty informal environment. I was telling them kind of what I do, and that I'm an attorney for creative small businesses and the types of things that I help with. And they were like, so, and that, but like, who's your target market? And I was like, honestly, the clients that I have that I jive especially well with tend to look to me as that nephew who comes over and fixes their computers. Like, they don't really understand the problem. They know it's kind of a big deal, and if they read something, they might be able to learn a bit more about the topic, but they really just want someone that they trust to handle it for them.
Yeah.
And I think that fits really into what you said about that's an emotion. And yes, I solve a problem, there's a pain point. You can, going back to what you said about having that shared value with your customer, if one of those shared things is that you both care and get emotional about the same topic, I think that's a really powerful thing to have in common with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it opens it opens a conversation that you both care about much more quickly, builds rapport, because you don't have to spend time talking about things that neither of you care about or only one of you care about. And it saves a lot of time, and it builds rapport much more quickly. And that's really what you want to do as a marketer and a business owner, is just build rapport with your customers, because that's what builds trust. That rapport building is something that if you can be consistent about it and are delivering on what you're saying every time, that's the trust factor, and it shortens the sales cycle. Not like I'm not talking about like in a, hey, creepy salesperson kind of a way, but like we're all in business to make money, and we want to make sure that we are making money, but at the same time delivering value, because that's what's important to us as well. We're doing what we're doing because we love what we're doing, or what we're selling, hopefully. And so finding the right customers to be able to open that conversation is super important.
Yeah, no, I love it. And something that I wanted to talk to both of you guys about was something that Bryan touches on in his TED Talk, just about that idea of having a business that you eventually feel like you want to leave. And Bryan and Courtney, feel free to chime in on this too. Can you guys speak to what have either you guys felt personally or that you've seen other businesses feel about why they might want to walk away eventually from something that they've created, and what can they do to prevent themselves from being in this situation so that they can stay in love with the business that they decided to build for themselves?
Yeah. So you want to give thoughts?
No, go ahead. You go first.
I think that well, first of all, I think none of us would actually be human if we didn't have those thoughts, because every one of us has a day where we don't like what we're doing. It's tough, it's difficult, it's challenging, difficult clients, whatever it is. So that's, that said, if you're having multiple days or multiple weeks or even multiple months, now it starts to grow into a bigger problem. What you're talking about there, what I talked about in my TED Talk was multiple months, and it wasn't. I need to be clear. It wasn't that things were actually going badly about the business. Things were actually going well, really well, which is so opposite what we all think about having a challenge. It was that I actually had delegated so much off to so many different people. I didn't feel like I was valued by the company that we started together. So here I am going, how am I going to contribute back to my own company? Because I turned into this master delegator, and it all of a sudden turned against me. So it actually made it so that I wasn't actually feeling like I was giving back. So I actually came to Courtney one day and said, hey, I'm not sure I'm actually needed here. I want to do something that's driving value and driving great work. And we have a great team, great clients. We're making great money. Everything's great. But I want to do something even more meaningful. And so that wasn't anything to do with what anybody was doing, other than I just needed to find myself. And so she challenged me first and foremost to find something out there that I could connect with. And that actually happened when I started to produce content, kind of like what we're doing here on the show. But I actually reached out to some CMOs at some very large companies and offered to have them down to our office and do just like what we're doing now. I did some in-studio video work, and I'd interview them. What I found out is that by interviewing them, I was actually not only learning from them, because I was asking them questions about how did they get to be where they're at and get through their challenging days. And to be the CMO of a multi-billion-dollar company, how do you handle that? How do you work through your planning and your strategy and your teams of people and your hundreds of employees and still come home every day happy, right? And then how do you do that in marketing sense and so on and so forth? I started learning so much through those interviews, and I think we all did. And then it started to actually dawn on me that these videos were being produced and everyone else was enjoying them just as much. So content was educational for everybody, and it was attracting more clients and more things into our business. So now all of a sudden I felt like I was giving back. So from there, content really started to amount to more content. I started creating more blogs. I started to write more. I started to produce a podcast. I started to produce our weekly H2H show. And before you know it, I'm producing, and we are producing content at the scale that's actually making me feel like I'm having fun. I'm doing some great work. I'm teaching other people. I'm learning from these people, and I'm driving back into our business. And that's when everything changed, I think, for you.
Well, and I think what I love about what you're saying is it's about being purpose driven. You know, because if you feel like you don't have a purpose in your business, you're never going to connect with it, and you're never going to connect with your customers at all. So, and to build onto that too, because there's also taking that a step further for me anyway. Sometimes when you're super purpose driven, it's easy to, if you don't have a great team around you, which is what I love what you're doing, Joey. If you don't have a great team around you to handle the areas that you don't know or aren't your expertise, then it can also go sideways.
Yeah, it totally. That's a really good point.
That's why we need our nephew, Joey.
We need our nephew. When are you coming over for dinner, Joe?
Right. No, and I think it's really interesting, and you brought it up earlier, Courtney, this idea of, yes, your business should have a purpose, especially if it's a business that you're creating, so that you can continue to feel like you're getting what you need out of it. I see a lot of business owners struggle with balancing a purpose-driven company that's also revenue generating.
And well,
that's
the plight of business, isn't it? Small business, anyway.
Yep, but I think that you guys are such a tag team. Now, I usually would not ask guests this. This is the first time that we're bringing on a couple, but I feel like you guys won't get mad at me for asking, and that you'll have a really good answer. You guys are married and you work together, and you both are in love with this idea of being human. How do you feel, and what have you learned about trying to create boundaries so that you're not in work mode all the time when you're together?
Boundary? What is a boundary?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
We so we don't, honestly. We don't set rules like that. If we set a rule like that, then I think we would get mad at each other because there would be too many rules. And so we decided, like, a long time ago when we started this business, the first night that we started this business, actually, we were laying there talking about the business and how excited we were. So this was 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And we started that night we laid there so excited, so full of like ideas. We're like, what if we do this? What if we do this? And then we'll do this, and then we'll do this. And then all of a sudden, I think you said to me that you're like, are we going to do this every night in bed? And
talk about work. Let's be clear.
I said that.
Right.
Yeah, I said that. And she's like, she's like, why not? If we're excited about something
Mm-hmm.
and it's driving passion and, you know, we're having a good time, then, you know, rules are off the table. So, so ever since then, it's really just, I don't think we've ever really argued at work.
No, we never. Well,
Yeah.
and let me preface that by saying, first of all, we preach work-life harmony, not work-life balance, because we don't believe in work-life balance. That implies that it's going like this, right? And that's not what it is. I mean, life is a symphony, but that has to be in concert with everything. And so when you're talking about harmony, that means that there's a lot of things happening at the same time. So it just needs to be well orchestrated.
I love that. I really, really love that. And I can, on a personal level, I really see what you guys are saying, because there have been times I'm very much like I really love productivity, idea of being productive more than I actually like being in a productive mode a lot of the times. And then I'll be like, hey, wife, I don't call her wife. I'm like, hey, Kat, I really want to get into the habit of, you know, making sure that we do whatever, like our chores on a weekly basis. How about we do this structure and we do it this way? And she's like, Joey, if we create a rule, I'm not going to follow it, and then I'm going to feel bad for not following it. And I think that that's something, I really like that you guys said that, and I think that applies in business as well. It can be tempting to set goals or rules for yourself, and that idea of being okay to just adapt that harmony relationship with a lot of what you're doing, because otherwise you might be setting yourself up to always feeling like you're letting yourself down.
Yeah.
Talk about a human moment. The leaf blower thought it would be a great time to blow leaves
right outside our window.
I love it.
The other thing I wanted to say too is, I mean, we do boundaries, yes. Rules, I guess they're sort of blurred, but we early in our careers, we both had the opportunity to work for married couples ourselves before we started our business, and for both of us separately, it was a total nightmare. That's nice, right?
It's okay. I can hear you.
It was a total nightmare. I mean, I know in my case, they fought all the time. They made everyone feel uncomfortable around them, and it was super unprofessional. So when we started Pure Matter, we just said, look, we're making a commitment to each other and to our team and our future employees that us being married is irrelevant to the business. Are passionate and excited and smart enough to know that professionalism comes first, and so that was always at the forefront, and our only rule actually in business, which was, you know, we would never share with anyone in a new business meeting that we were married. And we had some clients that after working with us for 6 months, they would start to put the pieces together, because we'd be sharing stories about vacations and they happen to coincide, or we talk about our 2 kids, and they'd be like, you know, and then
they'd friend us on Facebook.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Are you guys married?"
I love it.
You know? So that was my favorite, you know, moment, when after 6 months of knowing us, like even being around us in an office setting, it was really important to both of us that our employees never felt, you know, that they were at a disadvantage because we had some sort of like magical alliance that they weren't, you know, involved in.
Yep.
So, and I think it worked. I don't remember anyone ever, that us being married never came up in 17 years as being an issue.
That's awesome. A lot. And so we got a comment in from Masha 4, who's talking about that work-life harmony idea, saying that's awesome. I love that concept. I struggle with the term work-life balance, and it seems like that's all I hear. Yay. I agree, Masha. I think that I was, another thing I remember out of like one of a million things from law school is an event, law professors who said, look, when you first get hired by a law firm, you do not deserve work-life balance. And that can be hard for a millennial to hear, I think, sometimes. But I think it's really true, and I really like that idea of harmony. So, Courtney, you know, we talked a little bit about the H2H, human to human, about Bryan's book. I know that you were involved with what he's doing in his next book. I want to talk about your book, and create. And what's the title of the book again?
It's 21 Reasons Creativity is Like Sex.
I love it. And so I want to talk as much as we can, as much as you're willing to talk about it. But what inspired you to write that book?
Well, a couple things. First of all, I've had the title creative director, executive creative director for most of my working life, and it always bugged me when people they would come up to me and say, "Oh, you're so lucky, you're so creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body," and every time I just say, "Do you have a pulse?" Then you're creative. Just,
I love it.
May not be manifesting in an artistic way, which is sister to creativity, artistry. I mean, and I would just tell them, like, no, you are creative in your own way. The definition of creativity is, putting multiple concepts together in a new and different way and presenting them to the world that people haven't necessarily seen before. And then they would say, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." It like they needed permission or something. It's like super funny. And
that's really interesting.
And so the reasons why it's like sex thing, I mean, I'm like one of those people that A, I laugh hardest at my own jokes. And B, I just think double entendres are funny. Like, that's what she said jokes and like everything. That's just like anything anyone says, that's what she said usually runs through my head. And so the concept was born I think it was about 2012. I was asked to go give a presentation to an ad club, an AAF, American Advertising Federation club in Albuquerque, as part of an Addy judging experience. So I judge a lot of creative competitions across the country too. And they kind of sprung it on me last minute that, oh, by the way, the Addy judges are going to be our program the night before judging. And I was like, what? Well, what am I supposed to talk about?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, talk about anything. And I'm like, can you maybe be more specific? Oh, no, it's fine. Talk about anything. And so I was like, okay, so I'm talking to a group of creative people. They're in the agency world. They understand what it's like. So maybe I'll just like talk about the agency. So I put a deck together, and then I was replaying it back to Bryan to show him. And I stopped in the middle of the presentation. I was like, I'm so bored giving this. I cannot even believe, like, everyone in the audience is going to be falling asleep. This sucks. So I was like, I got to come up with a better idea. So I let it marinate for a couple days, and I was in the shower one morning and just kind of like ruminating on it. And all of a sudden it was like, whatcha, like, lightning bolt out of the sky. And I was like, oh my God, let's make it like at the time it was 10 reasons. There were 10 reasons why creativity's like sex. Like, you can do it solo, but it's better with others.
I love
or it. A quickie is nice, but not every time. It's awesome. Like talking and then relating it, of course, back to brainstorming and like, is it better to ideate alone or with a group, or what are the best ways to brainstorm? And or is it better to use the first idea, or what do you do to push past that first idea? And so I like immediately the presentation came together in like 10 minutes, and I thought, even if I totally fall flat like delivering this presentation, they're going to be so shocked by the content that it won't even matter.
I love it. One of the insights that I had when I was in college that I was particularly proud of, I had to pick a big paper to write. And at the time, I wasn't really particularly interested in much of anything. But I realized, kind of like you did, that people think sex is a really interesting topic. And so I was like, I'll just read some books about sex and then somehow pull in and kind of say, like, here is what this idea of sex, here's how this philosopher would respond to it, here's how this philosopher would respond to it. And so I created like a philosophy paper about it. And so I love your angle of let's bring sex into this presentation to make it more interesting. I think that's like dead on. But then also your idea of creativity being something that everybody has in them. I really like that as well because when people hear that, I try and brand myself as an attorney for creative small businesses, and people sometimes think that that's me limiting who I'm working with. And in a lot of ways, I'm kind of expanding and I'm saying, no, I'm just working with the creative aspect of your small business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like that you make that distinction, because I think a lot of people say, oh, I'm not creative, or they think about it only as, the literal artist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot broader.
Yeah, it's often mixed up. And I think I say in the book, like, creativity and artistry they're cousins to each other. Mm. But artistry is not the only way that creativity manifests. It could be, in your case, it's finding, a precedence that happened back in 1960 and marrying it with, a new law that was made in 2012 and connecting the dots together and saying, well, wait a second, if that happened and then this happened, that means that this can happen. That's creativity in action. That's just, neurons firing in a new way to create new patterns in your brain, which produces new and different ideas.
Yep.
So
no, I love it. So we've got about maybe 10 minutes. I don't want to forget a conversation that I wanted to have with you guys, both about the Facebook group that you're doing, but also in a larger sense. I mean, we talked about the emails for a business that might be just starting, or maybe they've been in it for a while, but they still feel like they can grow in terms of their marketing funnels or getting people on board. Right now, with the landscape that you guys are seeing, since you have you're kind of knee deep in this world of marketing and human marketing, if people could only pick one or two places to do it, would you recommend the email route, starting a Facebook group? What's kind of the low-hanging fruit that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, that's a hard question because every business is so different that trying to say which tactic works for which company might be hard, because there's literally hundreds and hundreds of options. I mean, there's a YouTube channel that could be better than those options. There's like we were talking about before, just sending videos directly to people. There's blogging. I think creating content is probably the best way to start. Most companies, you can't really jump to email until you have the content. You can't really jump to YouTube until you have the content. So coming up with content is really kind of critical to every business really getting started. Then how do you humanize that content? So taking that content and actually putting it out on the right channel. That's I think the key to the whole thing. And really, it's where does your audience live? That's where you need to be. You don't want to shout at a symphony.
Yeah.
If your customers are there, so like you really need to be wherever they are. And if you don't know where they are, then I suggest one of two things. One, sending out a survey, saying where, to your list or pick up the phone and call people and just say, where do you spend most of your time, and then go there. Now, I think you picked up on the top two, email and Facebook groups, because they're the two that almost come to mind for most people, right? But I really got my start, and I still think people will get their start by blogging, because I think people get more, and it could be vlogging, video blogging, but people really get. People want to hear from you. They want to understand you more. They want to hear what you're thinking. They want to get more value out of you. They want to understand, like, how are you going to think if I hire you, before I hire you? And I think the only way to do that is to create that. And the reason I say blogging is because you own your content. And I think if you start with Facebook and you start with emails, not so much, but even emails on a different hosted server. So by hosting your own website, by hosting your own blog, and by writing your own content, you own your content. There's no way that Facebook can own your content because they own everything you put up on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that your house should be put in order first. Your content should live there. And then the spokes on a wagon wheel, if you look at it at every other channel as a wagon wheel, the hub and spoke model. So the spokes are Facebook and Facebook groups and email and everything else out there. That comes second.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really well said. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
And I think to tack onto that too is that something that we hear a lot from both our HH Club members and then also our clients is they have tactics coming at them all the time. I mean, there are tactical things that you can choose from 100 a day. And my best advice would be to say, take a step back and just, if you can answer the question of what makes my product or my business special, why did I start it, and what makes it different from what everyone else is selling, if you can answer those three questions, that helps to develop at least a mini strategy about where you should be heading and what types of customers are going to be best for you. Because, you know, say if you started a jewelry business and you absolutely love pearls, I'm just making that up, but say you absolutely love pearls, then I want to know the story about why pearls. You know, tell me that you went diving when you were a kid, when you were growing up in Hawaii, and you had memories with your grandmother about, you know, going to get oysters in the fields and opening them and shucking them and finding like a black pearl that inspired you to want to show it off or whatever, you know? Yep. Tell me that story, and it's going to romance me into wanting to buy from you, because, you know, that's the difference between, we call it the difference between selling and creating conditions to buy. You know, because when you're creating conditions to buy, you are sharing your story, you're telling your why, you're connecting with your customers, so much so that they want to buy from you. They're eager to hand their money over to you because they're so excited about being a part of your world. And that's where it becomes a connection piece instead of transactional. And I think if we can get to that connection piece, the transaction becomes a no-brainer, but it's really hard, you know, just to be talking about things on a product level or speeds and feeds. You have to get to the emotion of your product. And when you can do that, it really starts to make a difference.
Yeah, I really like that. I was talking yesterday with a lawyer friend and mentor of mine about a frustration that I was having, or at least a tendency that I was starting to notice in myself, where anytime that I would start some type of conversation or lead opportunity, I would start to feel like that was a one-on-one possibility, like an opportunity cost type of thing. And he was like, I get it, that's normal, but you can't think that way. When you're engaging with people, no matter where it's on or if they're seeing your website or whatever, your mission isn't to try and just convert everybody who knows or hears about you into somebody who can buy something from what you're selling. But I really like that idea of conditions. And I want to talk about your guys' group, the Human Marketing Hub. Is that right?
No, the club.
No, the hub.
Oh, the hub.
Yeah. Well, both.
Yeah.
Well,
let's talk about the hub first. Yeah.
The hub is a free group. It's actually, if you go to humanmarketinghub.com, it'll take you to the Facebook group.
Awesome.
And it's a free group that helps to talk about everything that we've just talked about here, but on steroids. So we talk about just because it's limited time. So we talk about you know, the different, how to create those different touch points, those different human touch points. We talk about different things every day. There's a theme every day, Monday through Friday, and there's a moderator every day of the week. So each person takes over a different moderation. They'll actually orchestrate a new question each day based upon that theme. And so we have a really engaged community. I think it's like 76% engagement on the community, which is really
crazy. No, that's fantastic, you guys. And I mean, I'm in the group. For anybody who might not have joined yet, I put a link up in my own group for people to check it out. But it's it's really great. And I think one of the things that I really like about it is that you guys have found a way to crack that nut on Facebook of having an engaged Facebook group that's not just everybody trying to promote themselves.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's no selling allowed in the group, which sucks for us, but
we're like, oh crap, we can't break our own rule.
I love it.
Now all of a sudden I'm like, that's a horrible rule. But we can't sell, so that I guess we got to stick to it. But everyone is no one's allowed to sell. If you start selling, you just get booted from the right away. And there's no asking or anything. We make that clear up front, so that way it's more value. So it's really two rules. One is educate, give, or get. Ask any questions you want. If you just do one of those two things, then you're contributing to the community. And we do a roll call. We welcome people into the group. Don't be surprised if your name gets welcomed if you join the group. So there's a lot of different interaction points so that we can actually make it do what we're talking about, which is build a human group.
I love it, and it's I see a lot of groups, and it sounds like people are asking questions and the community is chiming in, but you guys are also, and maybe with your moderators, providing kind of value, like your own thoughts. It's not just you create this group and people who are members chime in with their own ideas, but that's kind of all there is. You do provide some of your own guidance in that group. I think that's fantastic.
It's my favorite part of the day to go in and engage in that group. I
think that's awesome, because there's so many groups where it's just kind of like and I'm a part of them. I enjoy them. There's a place for it, but it's just kind of a free for all where people ask a question and then everybody chimes in with their own responses. And knowing that when you enter into this type of a group and you ask those questions, the responses that you're getting are kind of next level experienced people who know what they're talking about. I think that's an awesome service. And let's talk about the other thing you've got going on, H2H Club. And as we talk about this, you guys, if you're interested, just write H2H below in the comments, and one of the three of us will provide some more information on how you can get involved here. But what's the deal with H2H Club?
Yeah. So first of all, Stella asked, what's the name of that Facebook group? If you go to Human Marketing Hub, HUB.com, it'll take you there.
Great.
And I'll be glad to approve you, Stella, or anybody here that's going to join. H2H Club is a membership club. It's a membership portal. It has both a private Facebook group and a portal of knowledge. We have now almost a year's worth of masterclasses. We have masterclasses from the best of the best, designed around themes every month. We've had everyone from like Dennis Hughes, who helped design the Facebook ads network, teaching how to build ads and convert on advertising.
Wow.
We've had Steve Dotto, who has, I think, over 250,000 YouTube followers, teaching how to set your YouTube channel up and how to get viewers, and then how to convert your YouTube channel to an email list, and then eventually into customers. We've had, and everything really is built around how do you build these individual little touch points. So each month we have a tactical approach with a masterclass, and then we actually will dive inside the Facebook group into building those things alongside the members. So it's kind of like having your own training center with your own personal CMO. And it's really a lot of fun. We have a lot. In fact, everybody that's watching, we're happy to give a 10-day trial if you just want to come in and try it out. I think Joey and I talked about that ahead of time, and so if you list the H2H in the comments, I'll reply back with a little code for you if you want, and awesome. You guys can just try it out and see if it's good for you.
I think that's so cool, because it's like a course on steroids in terms of the value that they'll get from this. I mean, what you just talked about with the Facebook ads and everything else, like it's a huge variety of information that businesses can really use to take what they're doing to the next level in marketing and otherwise. Sorry, did I cut you off, Courtney?
No, I was just going to say, we actually started the H2H Club because we saw that the clients that we were working with at Pure Matter in our business, tended to be larger enterprise customers, and who we couldn't serve were the people who need it most, which is entrepreneurs and small business owners. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we could be at scale and help to become the marketing coaches that these entrepreneurs and small business owners really need, because there are so many things coming at you. And so we intentionally made the club at the how-to level. And so, like Bryan said, every month is a different topic. September is productivity month. And we were trying out different tools. We had a 90-minute demo of a new social media management software called Lately last week. And then tomorrow we have Asana is coming in and giving us a 90-minute tutorial about how to use it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's things like that. So we're learning alongside of our members as well, but it's, to bring in all these master classes and then provide opportunities for our members to network with each other. Yesterday morning we had our networking call. We have one a month, and the conversation went everywhere from how do I create a lead magnet that just pops up immediately instead of being emailed? How do I build a chat bot that will go through Messenger and make it easy for me to, gather leads? The conversation was all over the place, but very pointed and focused to the how do I in marketing. And it was such a great conversation. Those are 90-minute calls as well. So
wow,
it's tons of value. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
I'm experiencing it as well.
Well, what I really like about it as a business owner is you have your known unknowns and your unknown unknowns, right? And I think that sometimes business owners, we get kind of obsessed with this idea of, oh, I just found out about this. I want to do it better. Like last month, I discovered like Facebook chatbots and did some research. With a little bit of luck and a little bit of work, I put out a little promo video that reached like 100,000 people. And I was like, whoa, that's super powerful. But I think that if you only kind of leave that to yourself to figure out what you need to be doing as a business owner, you're leaving so much on the table. And so something like H2H Club, where you can say, here are things that you should be concerned about as a business owner, and here are tips to push you in that way, I think is so helpful, because I'm sure there's so much stuff that you guys are teaching on and educating that people wouldn't even think to look into.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different because it's not a webinar. These are actually, everybody is on video.
Wow.
And so everybody can be seen, and you can turn your video off if you want, but everyone can be seen, and everyone actually interacts with the presenter. So it's a class versus a webinar. It's not one way. Everything is very driven to teach, not driven to talk at. And that's the difference. So anyway.
Awesome. Well, you guys have been fantastic. I know we're going a little bit over, and you guys are super busy, so I want to respect your time. To everybody who has watched, I really, really enjoyed this show. If you'd enjoyed it, please, I challenge you guys to hit that share button. And what's really cool about Facebook is it makes it super easy to hit that share button and then just tap on any group that you think this could relate to. So just if you see one, you're like, oh, that group makes sense to share this video in, just keep tapping them on. And the great way about doing that is that you're avoiding that self-promotional thing where people are sharing their own stuff in groups, but you're letting people in all of those groups be aware of what Bryan and Courtney are doing, and they might not know yet. So really appreciate you guys coming on. Really excited to share this video. And do you guys have any other final thoughts before we close?
You are awesome.
When is nephew Joey coming over for dinner?
Whenever you guys will have me. What are you cooking?
What your favorite dish all the time?
Love it. Love it. It's a lot of popcorn. That sounds great to me. All right, you guys.
Done.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty easy. My wife can't cook, so I can't get too specific.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll give her an invite. I promise. I really don't just call her wife when I'm talking to her. All right, you guys. That's it for this week. Catch you later. Have a good one.
Thanks, Joey.